This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. If you don't already subscribe to Paramount Plus, please use our affiliate link by going to talkthroughmedia.com/Paramount Plus. Using our affiliate link gives us a little credit, which helps us to keep bringing you great content. U.S. residents only.
Hello, and welcome to episode 18 of the Star Trek Lower Decks podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kyle.
Oh, and I'm LT.
And tonight we will be covering Season 2, Episode 8 of Star Trek Lower Decks, titled Excretus. Before we get started, we don't have any feedback about last week, but we will kind of mention again that this podcast is supported via our Patreons. That's at patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie. We've been for several episodes now doing a early access version of the podcast that goes out to the patrons. And this week, unfortunately, the patrons got it way ahead of everybody else. Sorry about that, but I just hit a kind of I don't know what I could say. Just every time I try to edit this week, I fell asleep. So unfortunately, that meant you guys suffered from it. So sorry, but
they understand.
Yeah.
And that's just another reason to become a patron.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is. And and we actually could use your help in that way, because we've had a couple of our supporters had to drop off for whatever reason. So if you guys could help out, we'd appreciate it. Again, just $1 a month. That's all it takes. Go to patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie, and you get some additional content like listening to how bad we pronounce things and
How bad you pronounce things, sir.
Or me, but
it's whoever's running the show, I think. Yeah. And there was one particular thing last week that the patrons got to hear, and the listeners got to hear a portion of it, but there was a certain thing that Kyle forgot. And you guys heard a little bit of it, but there was more. I took most of it out for the main recording. But anyway, I'll stop embarrassing you now. So Season 2, Episode 8 is titled Excretus, written by Ann Kim, who previously wrote Season 1, Episode 4, Moist Vessel. And that was the one where I think that was the first time we saw another California class ship. Mm-hmm. Captain Durango, directed by Kim Arndt. And this is Kim's sixth directed episode of Lower Decks. Previously, Kim directed Season 1, Episode 2, Envoys, Season 1, Episode 5, Cupid's Errant Arrow, Season 1, Episode 8, Veritas, Season 2, Episode 2, Kayshawn, His Eyes Open, and Season 2, Episode 5, An Embarrassment of Duplers. The description from ParamountPlus.com is as follows. A consultant arrives on the USS Cerritos to run drills that require the lower deckers and bridge crew to swap duties. There wasn't a star date given. The air date was listed as September 29th, 2021. That's obviously in Pacific time. The release time of it, I don't know. And if you say, why don't you know? I just mentioned why I kept falling asleep. So that's why I did not stay up for the episode. I think I woke up around, 4 a.m. or something like that. And then after I took my dog out, I watched it then. So it had a runtime of 25 minutes and 2 seconds. All right. I have a feeling we're going to enjoy talking about this one. So, Kyle, what did you think of I Excretus?
Oh my goodness, about time. 10 Boimler needs to drink more water. His skin is a mess.
I was actually thinking of using that one, so I'm glad to hear someone did. I said last week that I hadn't cared for the last few episodes, but I had hoped that the last 3 were going to be better, like Mike McMahon had said. In fact, he said at one of the recent interviews, he said that the last 3 were going to be like season 1 last 3 were, but on steroids. And I can't say what the other 2 are like, but if I have to judge it based on this episode, we're going to be in for one hell of a ride. This is my favorite episode of the show. Easily. I've watched it 6 times already. 10 out of 10 rigged simulations. So,
Yeah, I totally agree. And I saw when you wrote that down, I'm like, okay, I have to come up with something else because I was basically going to say the same thing. Because this by far, and there's been some fun episodes, but I'm like, I totally agree. I'm like, this is one that I'm going to always basically have there, like set, just ready to go. And I'll be like, oh, I want to watch something. I'm like, I'm going to watch this every single time because this was so much fun.
Yeah, I said in my comments, I said I could watch this one 50 times easily. Like I could watch this one over and over again. In fact, I have watched it over and over again. I have seen it almost 7 times. I just didn't finish the 7th viewing. So yeah, for me, it's so damn enjoyable. And there are a couple things that like I had somebody message me on Thursday night wondering, well, there's that naked time section. You didn't like the thing from last week. What'd you think? I'm like, I loved it.
Yeah.
I just thought it was the funniest thing. It didn't, for whatever buttons I was pushing last week, it wasn't pushing the buttons at all this week. Anyway, all right, LT, what did you think of the episode?
Well, I gave it a 9.9 out of 10. It's naked time. And I enjoyed it. I watched it several times, but being that I am the Russian gymnastics judge, they're going to have to work a little harder to get a 10 out of me.
Yeah. It's not perfect. There are a couple of things that I did put down in no's and in not good enoughs. Mm-hmm. But I didn't deduct actual marks from it. They were such minor nitpicks for me that.
Right. Well, I was going to say, just for the sake of consistency, if I ding it for something, I'm going to take off.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's fair.
Just because I'm that kind of guy.
It's a 9. You gave it a 9.9. You don't do what Boimler did when he had a 98 and go for 100. You take your 98. Yeah, you take your 98 and you go home,
Do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will probably go on the same limb as you guys. And this may have been my favorite episode of the series so far.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I really liked it. I didn't quite watch it 7 times, but I've watched it more than I've watched some of the others.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like the best way I can explain it is, last week, it was kind of a downer for me, and I had to struggle to watch it 3 times, and the only reason why I watched it the 3rd time was to get notes. You guys know how much notes I put in that document this week. Mm-hmm. It's full of it. And plus I've got a ton of, spot the references section. There were a couple that I picked up from other people, but almost all of that was mine. And like I've never done before, I was actually researching some of the stuff, you know.
Well, this episode, if we want to say that Mike McMahon likes his Easter eggs, this one was just absolutely chock full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as much as we are positive on the episode, we are shocked to only find that we got 2 voicemails and 1 piece of written feedback. So that written feedback is from, I'll just give it, it's Wes from Minnesota. He says, this episode hit on all the right notes, kept me laughing, which was a great thing to do. I give this episode 9 oh so gosh darn cute Borg babies out of 10. So
good. I'm glad someone got the Borg babies because I wanted to say that too.
Yeah.
Well, Borg babies was my second choice, but sorry. After seeing Shax, it was
yeah, Dwight may be giving a rating. I don't know. I don't remember in his voicemail, but we have no Mary Lou voicemail this week, believe it or not. Yeah.
What? Maybe she's just rewatching the episode over and over again. She's stuck in a time loop.
It's just a jump to the left.
All right, so let's move on to our yeses.
Yes.
Wes from Minnesota says, yes, for hitting all the right notes. I loved it all. Even the naked time one. It made me laugh. So say we all, Wes. So say we all. The TNG Terran Empire logo from IDW's Mirror Universe comics is now canon.
I didn't notice that, and I didn't notice that I don't know that logo, so I know I've seen it, but I don't know it. Anyway.
I know that, and the sidebar is I've got that comics set, and it's on my tablet, and I haven't gotten to them yet. So thank you for the sharp eye, Wes.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to change the order that's written in the document for our yeses, because you just gave Wes's yeses, and you've only got a couple, 3 yeses written down there. So I'm going to let you do your yeses first, because both Kyle and I have some long lists.
Correct. Well, then, my first yes was we now know Jennifer's last name.
Yes, we do.
Jennifer Sharayan.
Yep, Sharayan. Yep. And apparently I read about that, and she got her name of Jennifer from Tawny Newsome, who was improving. That wasn't in her actual script. She just like improvised and called her Jennifer.
So there we go.
Yeah.
But it was the cool thing. Like I said, when they had all the names up on the board.
Yeah.
And I looked and I went, well, at least they gave her a proper Andorian last name.
Yeah. I noticed it too. So, yeah. And I thought LT's going to be happy about that. I did not mean to press that button. I thought I was muting myself.
Thanks, Malash. I'm going to make a note of that, sir. I'm going to call the union and make a grievance to the shop steward.
Let's see. I guess that one doesn't stop.
Yeah, I was thinking like that. It keeps going and going and going.
It sounded like you turned on the shower.
Anyway, there's some sausage.
Okay, my second yes is Borg babies.
Yes, and Borg babies.
And the reason that I chose Borg babies is that actually fills in some loopholes in the Borg mythology, because there was always the question of, were drones just assimilated as full live adults?
Well,
Or-
we've seen Borg babies before.
Right, but there's still some inconsistency if you look at script to script when they have the Borgs in on whether or not they are taken as babies and implanted or whether they are grown. So it's just filling in some gaps there.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Yep.
Plus, they were cute.
Yep. And of course, well, and two, all the times that Boimler was going through, and it's like, try it again. Come on, Borg babies. And it's like he's carrying them and does the roll, and then you see later that he actually lowers them down before he does his roll out of the vent.
Yep.
And of course, my last yes is pretty much everything that Brian and Kyle are going to say. Rather than steal the boys' thunder, had I gone last, it would have just been what they said. So at this point, it's what they shall say.
Yeah, it was a little difficult because Brian, you got the doc first, and so I was kind of like, "Oh, okay, wait, nope, oh, yep, okay, I agree." And then I was okay.
What I should have said in our chat was, "Hey, if any of you guys want to take any of these, go ahead."
But like I said, you guys hit all of the big yes points. So
yeah.
I had my two small ones, and I will.
Well, I was happy. I was happy to see that Jennifer got a last name because, I know it kind of it was kind of bothering me too in a way, because kind of like, how did she get that name? Like, I still wonder about Barnes, but I wonder less about Barnes than I do about Jennifer until now. So
yeah,
okay. Well, and I was going to say, well, there was Barnes and Jennifer in the hot tub.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then again, we go back around to Brad on the bar. So
yes. Which I'm about to talk about.
All right.
All right. Well,
it is your time.
Yes, I will go into my yeses. I mean, obviously, we're going to kind of probably step over each other on all this because, I mean, the whole plot, it's like, I love this episode. Like, it was such a great story, a great plot. Like, I don't know. It was like everybody like had to do these simulations, and it was a whole like, okay, like we're going to test you, but then it was on like what other Starfleet crews have experiences. So I was like, okay, obviously we're going to get a ton of Trek references,
yeah,
which I'm sure we'll discuss and spot the reference. And it was like, as you had said, whatever, like, I mean, I've been very unimpressed with this season over the last few episodes. And it was like, I started kind of getting the point where I was like, I was not enjoying it that much.
Yeah.
And then this episode comes out and it was like, it just hit the mark in so many places, taken from what Wes said, but it's just like, you have that moment when you're watching the show and then you're just like, I'm smiling, I'm enjoying myself, I'm laughing, compared to like the last several episodes where it's like it's a chore just to rewatch it because I have to do this because I'm going to be, putting up notes for the podcast. So, I mean, to me, it was just like, there was just more than I ever thought that I wanted. And I just hope there is more. I hope these next two episodes, I hope this is just going to get even better and we're going to have a great end of the season. And also I thought it was like, this is kind of what I want and what I expect out of a Trek cartoon, Trek, you can call this whatever, commentary, satire, like whatever. It's smart. It was entertaining. And like, even the sex jokes were not like 7th grade humor. That's how I felt about it. It's like, I get like with the Boimler naked with his legs spread out. I mean, like, I laughed out loud at that, but it was because I was shocked because it popped out of nowhere. But then it was like in the context of the whole sex now, like simulation. And we've seen episodes of Star Trek when they've had these kind of similar situations. And I guess, that's a reference to a episode, but like, it's like there's always one of those episodes in every Trek. Like there's like, oh, there's some virus, blah, 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 it's like, and then they go crazy. But I mean, it played with it. It wasn't too like, it was shocking. And I guess that's probably what it was. It was like, I was looking at like half all the naked bodies, but everybody's like, even like Mariner said something, but it's like, but then all of a sudden it was like that, like the camera turns and then you see Boimler and there's that black box. And I like busted out laughing because it was just so shocking, but it was like, I don't know, to me, I'm like, it just made sense and it was hilarious. So
and Jet standing behind him flexing.
Yeah, I didn't see that until my second rewatch, and I was like, because I was just shocked. I don't know. To me, it's just like there's a good way to do it, and then just not a great way to do it. And I felt like this just they did it in a way that made me laugh and not feel like, oh, this is just kind of potty humor.
There were, I think, 3 or 4 jokes that were back to back to back to back with that whole thing, that just with each one, it got more and more funny until it ends with Mariner just like sucking them all out the airlock.
Yeah. I know. Oh my
gosh. the no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh goodness. But yeah, it's like, but that's again, it was like even when like in the beginning, like Mariner, I think, like when they all hear about this, like, this drill instructors come in, this and that. But like even Mariner was like in the beginning, she was like telling her mom and like the bridge crew, it's like something like, I hope that the drill tests are to see if anyone in the bridge is a giant piece of, and then when she's going to say the cuss word, it's like the door closes and then cuts her off before she gets that. And like, to me, I'm like, it's funny. And to me, that's like such a better way to handle that. And so I don't know. I feel like it's like, where were they in all previous episodes? Because it's like, this one just hit it and like made me laugh and was not like made me feel uncomfortable or being like, what am I even watching? Like, I don't make sense. I think one of the things that kind of is this makes it work is like, it's context. If we don't have anything to basically relate to or know of something that's being like, reference to this and that, then a joke like a sex joke or something like that it's not going to land. But if there's like a context behind it and then we're understanding it, then it's kind of like, oh, okay, I get it. And like, it's, I don't know, to me, it's like it plays a little bit better. So that's just kind of why my point of all that. And it's like this episode, even with this, sex jokes or whatever, it was hilarious. I think, like so funny.
The my takeaway with this episode is how much better written it was compared to the last few. This one, to me, it wasn't just the references, it was the way it was so smartly written. And like there weren't any parts. Well, there's a couple things that I got to question, but they're minor. But just how smart they built the scenes, and it just really, really, really tight writing. And funny, and not sophomoric, funny. Well, okay, the part of it was, but it's funny. It's so nonsensical that it's funny, like seeing Boimler with a big, with his legs spread wide open and with the black thing, that was just so shocking, and that it was funny. Yeah. It's just that's not what you were expecting to see at that moment.
Right. And I think that's why it played so well, at least with me, was the fact that it was like, I was not expecting that. And then all of a sudden, boom, right in my face. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, like laughing at that. And yeah, I don't know. It just, yeah, there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. And it wasn't sophomoric. And I think you're hit it right on the mark. It's like the writing, like just everything that was just how it played. And as you progress through the whole episode, it just, I just all made sense in it. And it was funny. And you weren't scratching your head because there was some monkey grabbing its horn.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And I think that you can do, you can do potty humor, but if it's well written, artistic potty humor, it works a lot better.
Yeah.
I think it was just this is the sort of humor that I want to see, because it's you got to think a little bit. It's not just something that's a cheap gag,
Just for
or back to our 7th grade jokes. It's intelligent 7th grade humor.
Yeah, agreed. And then next was like just about just all the drill simulations. It's like I got a big kick out of just like looking up at all the screens and seeing what everyone's doing.
Looks like I missed a few by what you've got here.
Yeah, I remember I paused and like wrote them all down basically on my rewatch, because I was like, I noticed it before, but I didn't stop when I first watched it. But yeah, it was just like there was just stuff like whale rescue, which I'm assuming that's kind of a Discovery reference.
Well, no, it's probably Star Trek 4.
Or like Star Trek 4, but like the like, and then Trivial Infestation, and then the Tholian Web, and then it was like Tindy had one that was called EMH, and then it was like TAK, but like then it was cut off, like there was something in the way. And I was like, oh, is that like a Voyager episode? Like I was like, which, like the EMH is the only, like that's Voyager. Like there were no EMHs before that. So it was kind of like, what episode are they trying to reference? Like what does she have to do? Because I'm like, I love the Doctor. It's one of my favorite characters. And so I was kind of like, oh, I wish I could have seen like what that was.
I wonder, I don't know. In Voyager, was there an episode where the EMH was taken over?
Well, there was one where the EMH took command.
Yes, and he was kidnapped, and that's how he got his hollow emitter, like his portable one. There was the other hollows that were like running away from the other race, like other alien race or whatever that he helped like free. So yeah, but even then it's like like what, I don't know. I'm just like ... because it was like that's where it cut off, and I'm like, I want to know. Of course, Boimler getting the Borg encounter, I thought was just obviously like the perfect fit and the best like for him in that character. And it was kind of fun though. It's like, and I might be like looking too much into this or not, because I still always kind of have my references to Galaxy Quest. And I felt like I was kind of seeing Boimler in how a fan would have saw like his experience there. Like we all know the Borg, we all know the episodes. It's like, there is a huge lore behind the Borg, and just it's a big part of Star Trek. And Boimler is kind of the same way. He's like, oh my gosh, I know everything. I've read everything about it, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to totally take this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was like, but just watching him do this, and it was like, okay, perfect. And then it just also kind of made me think, it's like, oh yeah, what would I have done? And I don't know. I absolutely loved it. And I thought it was perfect for them to use Boimler, as that's like what he was going, like that was his story for this, episode.
Yeah.
So, another was the bridge officers, because obviously like there was they were like basically role reversals. And so it's like the bridge crew, we're going to do lower decks going to be bridge crew. And it was just funny that it was like, of course, they're all sitting there kind of like chilling down in the lower decks. They're just like, oh yeah, this is like no big deal. But then whenever like there's the alert, they're in the cargo bay and they're just like stacking. Like, so basically it's like the Klingons are attacking. They find out, it's like, oh no, you stay here, stack crates. Like, and that's all they're doing. And of course, like as the ship's being attacked, and they like whoever like the captain or an officer is running by, it was like they were fighting the Klingons, they were fighting or like Q was there, and then the Jim Hadar boarded or something.
Yeah.
And then like Shax's like, I guess he's like, oh look, I totally got them all stacked. And then of course, because some laser fire, the ship gets attacked or hit with a weapon or whatever, and then it all falls and like to the ground, and then they fail. And I just thought that was.
But the best line was something that I've asked. It's like, if we have to stack these, why are they shaped?
Yes. No, I know exactly. Yep. It was like, wait, what? Oh, but
it's like the whole sci-fi. They can't just be boxes. They've got to be, hexagonal tubes.
Oh, yeah. It was that was just hilarious, and that was like a lot of fun. Yeah, and then also it's like I kind of didn't get, it was like, oh, so the lower decks replicators only let them replicate one pizza at a time, like one pizza slice at a time. And I was kind of thinking, I'm like, how is that really a bad thing? You could just keep going up to it and be like, oh, hey, I want pepperoni. Oh, I want sausage, instead of having a whole big, giant pizza. I don't know. I thought that was more convenient than. So
depends. It depends on what kind of pizza it gives you.
Well, it's like, okay, they didn't really explain. Do they have a choice, or is it just like they only get like whatever and it's a slice at a time? So
you're going to tell me you only eat one slice of pizza?
Depends. I don't necessarily like having a big giant pizza that's too big for what I'm going to eat. But if I'm sharing,
I was going to say 3 slices minimum, man.
Well, it depends on if there's breadsticks or if there's any sides. That's my thing. I usually do 2, and then if there's like the sides, then that adds up to
it. Plus you're probably still used to those big, thick Chicago pizzas.
Well, deep dish is basically a giant like pie. So there's a lot there, and it's a lot of cheese. Anyways, and that's the other part too, is like, and I guess pesto is only reserved for the high ranks. I was like, that seemed interesting. And then the last part though, like, was at the very end when the what's her name, the drill instructor Sharon Yin Yang or Bing Bang that Mariner called her, like, they're trying to make her like change the scores back to whatever. So they're like, okay, fine. It's like, go find us, like, Mariner, find me like something crazy or dangerous to go, like, investigate. And of course, like, one of the like things on the sensors, is like black holes, blah, 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 this, that. But I just love the fact it was like the loner crystalline entity, the crystalline entity consuming a rogue planet. It was like a couple crystalline entities getting frisky. And then it was just like, yeah, I guess it's always like the crystalline entities, because that seems to be that one staple, I guess, in Star Trek, that, like, it was like Encounter at Farpoint for Next Generation, crystalline entity. We have the crystalline entity, which I guess the frisky one was Voyager. I'm sure there was, other crystalline entities that have like been popped in here and there, but
we've only had crystalline entity in 2 episodes of Next Gen. So I talk about that in the Spot the References section.
All right. Well, that's why I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to like go try to do too much, because I know we're going to talk a lot about that. Because
we got references this week.
Yes. Well, the whole show was lots of references. But anyways, that was, I really, as we go on, I'm like, and then what you're going to say was going to basically wrap it all up, because this episode was so awesome.
Yeah. I have much to say, and let's get started with there were some great quotes in this episode, and it just started with, I thought one of my favorites right at the first was when Shax says, "Ridiculous. We're all equals on this ship, right?" Ransom says, "They sleep in a hallway." Shax, oh. And then, of course, who could forget the Klingon saying, "You must help me kill myself. I broke my back picking up a peanut." Who Shax says, or should I say, Mirror Shax says, "Who dareth bump into me?" And Mariner says, "Oh, I dareth. I double dog dareth." And then, of course, she hits him. And then he says, okay, good. Just checking. I like when the computer said Borg encounter. Boimler says, can you be a little more specific than that? Computer says, resist the Borg.
That was one of my favorite lines. Because that's basically it. Yeah. Just resist.
There were several from the whole Naked Time one. They were all like in rapid succession. First is when Mariner said, keep your hands to yourselves. And then she says, hey, that's an anus. It's like, and then, of course, she sees, that's when she sees Boimler. And then, what's his name? Stevens is up on top of Ransom. And he says, I can't tell where I end and you begin. And I noticed that Stevens had a horgon in his hand that he was spanking Ransom. And then, of course, Shaq's saying, oh, it's naked time, which we've talked about already. And the funny thing was that when there was the callback later on in the episode on the bridge, and, you know, we see Mariner's reaction, I was flashing back to him saying the same thing. So it was funny that she also flashed to it. Another one was when they were talking to Sherry Yim Yam or something, whatever her name is. I have it written later on. Mariner says, and those horses, I would have never get trampled by a horse. And then the Sherry Yin Yam says, oh, actually, no, the horses weren't rigged. I ran out of time. That one's on you. Mariner says, horses love me. Shut up.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And who could forget the Borg Queen saying, and I only got part of this one because I didn't get to write it all out, but a remarkable creature, your design very nearly passes as human. And Boimler says, I am human. And her reaction was, oh, wow, then you need to drink more water. Your skin is a mess. And then she said something like, you know, but I think we should still assimilate you because it's our kind of thing. Yeah, I didn't get the exact reference there. And then Boimler says, are you sure? Because I have hay fever and acid reflux. Adding me might result in a net negative for the collective.
Yeah, this was hilarious.
Anyway, my point being, there were so many good lines in this episode. To that end, since we were talking so much about the whole Naked Time thing, I got kind of challenged by one of our listeners this week saying that he thought that I might have specific personal reasons why that kind of got to me, that plot. And I don't want to go into detail, but I think he was right when he said that. And the funny thing is, even though, you know, specifically I'm talking about Billup's story last week. So when Billup says, nothing makes me hornier than torturing someone, I'm horny all the time, I found that hysterical. So.
Well, you've got to mention Mirror Rutherford and his goatee.
Yes, Mirror Rutherford and his goatee.
That Billups had a beard instead of a mustache.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Boimler really kicking Borg ass. I mean, even from the first attempt, he got like a 79 on his first try. And, you know, I mean, that's not a fantastic mark, but it's not bad considering everyone else was failing. You know, that was the first pass, right?
Yeah.
And he was the only one to pass. Only one. And yet he kept scoring higher and higher and higher until he would have had 100 had he left the training facility or whatever. But, thankfully he didn't. But still, just before that one, he got a 98. And it's pretty impressive, though, that he was able to do what he did.
And in the end, he ended up with an 8.
I know.
Which was sad. It's like, oh, he still got basically assimilated, but he still came out with an 8.
Yeah.
Did I pass?
Two last ones I want to highlight. I thought this was for the Doomcocks of the day, the ones that complain, well, we've never heard of a California class ship. That's when the instructor says, in a very well placed, none of you are the best. You're on a California class ship. Most of the Federation doesn't even know you exist. And I thought that was exactly for those people.
Yep.
And lastly, we would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Borg Queen was played by the original Borg Queen, Alice Krieg, and she has now played it in Star Trek First Contact. She played it in the finale of Voyager, and now in Lower Decks. So very cool.
Yes.
To be able to have her come back and do that. And I thought she did a great job in the role. So, all right. So that's it for our yeses. Probably the longest yes section we've had in a long time.
Yep.
Because I know a lot of times we just speed through the yeses, but yeah, we're at about the 47-minute mark of our raw recording anyway. So let's move on to our no's.
No!
All right, Wes from Minnesota. He says, maybe the naked characters are a little too much. Still made me laugh, though. Just felt a little out of place. It's naked time.
And, I talked about this already, but it's just kind of funny or odd, to each his own, because, for me, the Mugato stuff was way over the top for me. And I didn't like the last story, the story about that stuff last week. But this I just found funny as hell. So
yeah, it's just I don't know. I still feel like just context.
Yeah, it just was so absurd, and it wasn't a single person that was singled out. It was just everyone crazily acting that way. And
no, that, and also it's in the whole story, it was everybody was dealing with their version, whatever they were assigned. It was Tribbles or the Borg or this and that, and it was just Mariner was going through these her little challenges, and it was just and it was kind of getting more ridiculous as it went. So it's it's one thing when you put it in that sense where it's it's fitting in the story because everything is crazy going on, to being where it's just where it's oh, hey, they're just walking down the hallway doing their own normal thing. And then all of a sudden it's and it's just it doesn't land. It doesn't make, that's why I was saying earlier was and like you said too, is the writing was good. I just felt it was a very smart and entertaining episode, because it just wasn't just we're just going to do the lowest bottom thing. And it was, I don't know, it's so better to do it this way than it has been done. I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, LT.
Okay. Well, my no is one that I was talking to Kyle about earlier. The scenarios, especially when Mariner tried to go another way and she got penalized because she went the wrong way. It reminded me the difference between playing Metal Gear Solid and Splinter Cell. And if you've never played either game, Metal Gear had a thing where to complete a mission, you had to do the steps in the right order, in the right way. So there was a running joke where your hero, Solid Snake, hides in a crate, and you do the crate sneak to get by the security camera, but you have to do it in a very specific pattern. And I played the game for a while and got really frustrated because I couldn't really get into that level of it almost got to be where like you used to talk about running patterns on Pac-Man, that you had to do the exact steps in the exact right order to get through. Whereas Splinter Cell, you had your mission, you had your objective, and there's certain things you shouldn't do that would fail the mission. But as far as how you chose to execute it, that was kind of up to you. So there was one stage I remember that one of my buddies has picked on me about for several years, is you were supposed to sneak past the security guard. Well, I kept grabbing the security guard and knocking him out and putting him in a closet. And the game would automatically respawn another security guard if you went into this room and came back out. So by the time I'd finished that part of the mission, there were like 15 security guards knocked out in this closet. But that was that was the only gripe about I had with the scenarios, because it seemed like they were very Metal Gear. That the reason like Mariner was failing was not because she was really failing the mission, but because she was failing to follow the specific steps that Miss Floaty Head and Torso had in mind.
Yeah. I think that was probably the first sign of that it was rigged.
Yep.
Is like, because it's like
when she when she's like, I'm going to go in here, and the door opens and it's, holodeck grid, and when she smacks into it,
it's like, nope. It's like, you like went off the path. Like, it's like you lose so many points. Yeah. Yep. And that was, because I mean, that's also kind of like a little bit of how you think about, like, especially how they in the show, it's like, Starfleet and being like, you don't do things just, it has to be done like step 1, step 2, step 3. It's like everything's always about like improvising or being like, oh no, it's like, well, instead of like, I'm going to get an ally. I think Mariner says like, instead of getting an ally in the Mariner universe, I'm just going to go try to take over the ship, and then maybe I can like influence whatever. So it's like, that's a very Star Trek thing where it's like, how many times did Kirk disobey orders and then do his own thing? It's like they're always going to do like that kind of thing,
or the old Scotty and engineering thing.
Yeah.
Well, if we do the startup sequence by the book, it'll take X number of time. Well, we need that power now.
Right? It's like, just do it.
So it's like, okay, I guess we'll just throw the checklist out and we'll play it by ear.
Right. And they usually succeed. So yeah. Cool.
Oh, you didn't have to tell them how long it really takes.
That's all right.
Oh yeah.
Your captain won't think you're a miracle worker if you tell him exactly how long it'll really take.
Yep.
Yeah. The thing that that was true about that is you could tell it was rigged, not only by the narrow parameters, but like each time you deviated, you lost a lot of points. It was basically like Tendi, she refused to, she didn't want to kill him. So she went down from 100 to 76. And then she didn't want to kill him with the knife. So she went to a 46. So she could have killed him and still failed, So to me, it was rigged, and it wasn't.
Well, no, right. It was rigged. It was like, no matter what, she wouldn't have been able to do it. But I thought it was interesting. It was like, then those nurses come up and they're just like, oh my gosh, give me 300 cc's of any poison.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, but she had a hypo spray. Like, she was trying to basically do the same thing, but not with like poison. And so it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess the right method was to like, just take his knife or his whatever he
stab him,
and then stab him and kill him. But then in the end, when they're trying to like, oh no, we have to get him, like kill him, then they were just like, hey, we're going to use any poison. And I was kind of like, well, isn't that what she was kind of trying to do?
This patient needs an honorable death, stat.
I know.
It's like, the patient's going to live, time of life.
Yeah. Well, and if she had morphine, that's what she was trying to give him. Knock someone out with that and send him to Stovacor real easy. All right, I will go into my nose, and it's just this was obviously this is. I think Brian, you even kind of like nitpicking or whatever. It's like I wasn't really sure like what to even say, but I was kind of like, oh, I mean, I guess there were some things that just stood out, but it's like in the beginning, it's like when they left the lower decks, basically on the shuttle space station, whatever they were working on. It's like, and Captain Freeman, like they were going to jump to help the Bakersfield in this time loop. And then Captain Freeman, like, she's like, we better hurry. She's like, warp me. And I don't know. I just had a because, it's like, we've always heard engage. I don't think she's ever really said anything that's been like her version of warp
that was last season when she said, when she was walking down the hall going, I need an action phrase when we go to warp. And she was
okay. I totally.
So she used warp me one other time.
Okay. That's
her action phrase. Warp me.
And I can't remember if we saw her do that in the movie, that movie episode, or if it was actually in episode 10.
I think it was in the movie.
So this might have been the first time that we actually saw her do it, and not her as as a character in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it totally just like, I kind of was like, huh? And I was wondering, if it has been used before, but it has been used before. Yeah. Then I totally it never stuck with me then. And it kind of confused me. It's kind of like, oh, I guess she has a thing. Or it was like, okay, that seemed out of place or weird. It
certainly hasn't been used much.
Yeah. Well, it didn't land on me. Yeah. And I didn't really like, if anything out of the whole entire episode that was so great, I really didn't like the drill instructor and I think Mariner called her Sherry Bing Bing. I don't know why it was. And it was her character was okay, but for some reason, I guess I'm not up on my Pandorian or Pandoranian or whatever it was. I just thought the flying head, the body, and the legs were kind of just weird. And I don't have a reference for that. So I was kind of okay.
We'll talk more about that in the spot the references section. Okay, that is a TAS character from the animated series.
Which I still haven't seen.
Well, she reminded me of about every corporate team building trainer I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that part I got. I just didn't understand the whole flying head and 3 parts. I started thinking about is she like the Enterprise where it's we have the saucer section?
That, like Brian said, that's something he's going to get into in the spot the references deep cuts.
Oh, did I ever deep cut that one?
Because I remembered it from TAS, but it was one of those. It was an episode that was never one of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing it because it didn't really I kind of was no, but the time that I did enjoy it and I thought was hilarious is when at the end when they're trying to basically make her change their scores back. It's just they're flying in all these dangerous graviton waves and their ships being rocked around, and she's flying back and forth across the bridge, but everybody else is just in their chair. And so it was we always see that whenever it's the ship's under attack or whatever, and everybody goes flying out of the chairs because no one wears seatbelts, and then she's flying back and forth and they're trying to scare or whatever. But I don't know, that's when I thought the 3 parts was hilarious because she was just flying apart in every direction.
That was the one nice thing about when they had that on Picard, where they actually had people that wore seatbelts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because it's always been a thing. It's why wouldn't you have them if you have a chance of being thrown across the room?
It's because the chairs actually have inertial dampeners in the seats. It sticks you to the chair.
Velcro, basically. All right. Well, that is all I got.
Well, minor nitpick, I would say. So the one thing that came out of the cold open and the first part of the Act 1, are they suggesting that the reason why the Cerritos left without the ensigns is because Mariner didn't sign out the magnetic boots? Like, that's the only reason? So what does that mean? Like, they hadn't actually gone out to fix the relay station or satellite or whatever the heck it was? I don't think they actually said what it was, did they?
No.
They did.
Or-
They did.
okay.
They
it's
did?
It's a relay station.
But it didn't look like relay station 47 or type 47, because I actually looked that up and it didn't look like one of those.
This is an old phone exchange in subspace.
Yeah.
And this goes back to my nitpick from last week where Tendi found Rutherford in 2 seconds and the captain didn't have any idea. So,
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was pretty weak. And I also thought it was, again, a minor nitpick, but, when they were doing the simulation on the bridge, they get a proximity alert. And at the time, Mariner and Freeman are fighting on the bridge. Did no one else on the bridge, why did no one else on the bridge say, hey, we've got a proximity alert? Like, nobody says anything and they just crash and end of simulation.
Right. And the question I had for that is, which seat was Captain Freeman in? She was in the navigator seat.
Right.
Who was driving the ship, sir? That would be Shax, Mr. Badback.
Yeah.
And so, much as I hate to say it, I believe your proximity alert falls squarely on the broad shoulders of our favorite Bajoran security chief, if he was driving the ship.
I guess it was that they were causing so much commotion and his back hurts or something. There was just distraction.
Yeah.
Or crash because of plot.
It was Ransom's fault because he came back up to ask for cream or sugar.
He interrupted for the coffee delivery.
Anyway, minor grievance, minor plot point, but it just you would think someone on that bridge would have said something.
Yeah, agreed.
So, all right. So let's move on to our not good enough section.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
West from Minnesota says, the mirror universe scenario for Mariner. I think a good mirror universe episode of Lower Decks should be great. It would be funny, but also really good. To which, is that listener Brian or Brian?
Brian.
Okay, Brian.
I thought that this was just about right. They dipped their toes in the mirror universe, so to speak. They dipped their toes in the pool without going in all the way. So they dipped their toes in, felt the water, thought it was too cold, and didn't go back in. Because I think with all the mirror universe that we've gotten in Discovery, season 1, season 3 of Discovery, we've got this season of Picard coming up that we think at this point isn't mirror universe, but it's certainly some type of dark universe where the timeline has changed. I don't really want a Lower Decks mirror universe episode. I mean, to me, this was right on. It just a little segment of it, not too much, not too little. It was fine, exactly the amount it was. And if the show ends up going into its 10th season or something like that, then yeah, sure, let's do a mirror universe episode. But right now, no. I think we've had plenty of opportunity to spend in the mirror universe, and I don't think we need to go back into it for a while.
Yeah.
That would be correct. I think we've been to that well enough times with what we've gotten so far. And I think that just the fact that they can acknowledge Mirror Universe in Lower Decks is quite enough.
Yeah. This show is not like this, these are like what, 10 episode seasons. I think the first like Mirror episode, and even I remember like in Deep Space Nine was not until season 2, and it was like episode 24.
Right.
So it's like there was like a lot of stuff going on for a very long time to like, then it was like, oh, boom, here we do like we do a every Trek has had a at least most of every Trek has had its own Mirror Universe episode. But
that's not true.
No, I mean, Enterprise didn't have one.
No, Enterprise did have one.
Did they have
Yes,
one?
they did.
I never watched.
In fact,
Enterprise.
Enterprise had one of the better ones. They had was it a 2-part? And
Yep.
It was fantastic. It was Next Gen that never had a Mirror Universe. They had an alternate timeline one, but they never had a Mirror Universe.
Nope.
Well, okay, stand corrected, but I mean,
It's where we got Empress. On Enterprise we did have Empress Hoshi the First,
And we never had a Mirror Universe in Voyager, but we had plenty of them in Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, between.
Well, I think right. And okay, fine. On the technicality, I'm just saying like the main point was basically though, it's like if this was a 24 episode season arc, like whatever, then it's like, then it would make sense. But this is not set up for that. So for them to just do it this way and like you said, dip their toes in it was pretty much like the best way to do it. And then, we'll leave it at that for, they should.
Right.
24 minutes is not enough to explore Mirror Universe.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yep. All right. Well, that was all from our listeners. So I'll just go into mine, and it's again a lot of good stuff with this episode. Obviously, that there's things that could have been better, but even then, it's like I don't even think it's like there was anything bad. But I also kind of think that they should have done just like a quick cut to all the other crews doing their simulations. Because it's like we do see on the board of like, some of the other crew members, like what they were doing. And so I don't know. I mean, this is totally like nitpicking or whatever. It's like, but it would have been nice to see a montage of like how everybody else was doing and like, their, with their scores and like, just kind of like, I don't know, it's like, we had so many like, just from the board of like all the different scenarios. So it would have been fun to see kind of like a quick deal. Maybe there's like a tribble thing that like would have been like a very identifiable reference that we would all get that they could do in just like a really quick little bit. Cause I mean, otherwise, it's like, I really wanted to know what all the triple troubles and extreme engineerings were all about. Like, cause there was like, what are those? Cause I'm like, I don't know. Like, extreme engineering could be anything, and triple troubles could be anything. So it would have been fun to see like everybody failing on, from all the different crew members, even if we didn't know who they were. It was just, so that really was kind of my only take on it. So
actually, no, I think that I actually was quite harsh with my no. So that was really it.
Brian, it's all you.
Okay, so why were those 4 ensigns picked to fix a relay station? Like, for example, that doesn't seem to be something that they would have Tendi on there for. It seems like more of an engineering communications officer type of job. So why those 4? And to that, I also wonder, why did we see Rutherford and Tendi get bridge duty? That's not normally something we would see them, in the con and ops positions. So what's up with that? that was a question that I had. Now, that's not to say that they haven't been trained for it, but that was a question that I had. To that, why were Tindy and Rutherford cheering that Pandronian and her name? I knew I wrote it down somewhere. Sherry Yunyem is her name. And it is very similar to the original Pandronian that is in TAS. His name was Ari Benbem. So it's like just basically add an SH and exchange the Y's with a B, and you got his name. So, but anyway, she said, assuming that's just she said this one, and of course they always say this one, and that comes from it'll be in the spot the references section. That is internally consistent. This one started on the bottom, but with hard work and plenty of drills, this one is now at the top. And then they like started like cheering like crazy. It's like, well, why are they cheering so much? That I didn't get.
I didn't get that one either.
The conclusion that Freeman and Mariner came to made sense. So that's my thought about it. And that the reason why I said not good enough on it is hopefully that's how they use it, and it's not like, despite what that this one called it or, was trying to get out of it. Hopefully that's how the rest of the crew will be able to improve from it. I thought that they never get the good assignments. So why did they do so well when they take Sherry on these like crazy, let's go to the crystallinity, let's go through a black hole, all this stuff. Like they're doing it like they do it all the time. I thought that they didn't do that stuff. I thought they were doing the boring stuff. So that was a thought I had. And lastly, Rutherford's assignment. I thought, it was good. Of course, it reminded me of The Wrath of Khan. My gripe about it is it was too short, and basically he only failed because he couldn't get in the door and it was too hot and he didn't have anything to put on his hands, and that's why he failed. So I think he kind of got screwed over a little bit with that one. He could have used a slightly longer story.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for our not good enough section. So let's move on to our feedback section and open hailing frequencies. Okay. So we've got 2 voicemails this week. Our first is from Jeff, X-Force 11, keeping his streak alive with feedback.
Hello, Star Trek fans. This is Jeff X-Force 11 leaving my feedback about the latest ep of Star Trek Lower Decks. So I thought this was interesting that I thought what was going to happen was exactly what Mariner and her mom thought was going to happen. This is a drill to teach everybody what it's like to be the other person. And that was totally not it. It was just a fraud to keep this woman's job. And I thought that was an interesting twist. I liked Boimler being the rock star and being so driven to complete the simulation, and he was at 100%. He ended up at 8% because he was saving the crew. And I think it's neat that he can save the crew, and it really just proves that he's good on both halves. And yeah, I could have done without the stupid naked time section of the thing that Mariner had to go through. I really thought that was just, that they could have done without that and just given more time or a different simulation. But it was an interesting episode, a little better than last week's, but I'm hoping the next 2 get really good. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. X-Force 11. I would say that I liked it quite a bit more than you did. He said that he liked it only a little bit more. I liked it a lot more.
Same here.
Yeah.
Keeping the I-85 power band from North Carolina alive.
Something that I wanted to comment on, where you said that you thought that it was basically, going along I get what the point of this is. And it seemed like that was what the point of it was. And of course, it wasn't that way. And that sent me on a little bit of a search for why. And I'll tell you what I did in the spot references section, but what I found out kind of made sense based on what I saw. So I don't want to spoil that, but did some homework. All right, so we got one more voicemail, and that ends our feedback this week. It is, of course, from Dwight Berman.
Hi there, Brian and Lieutenant and Quail, and kiss to Mary Lou. This is Dwight Berman reporting for the Lower Decks. So this time this time I found that the title, the excretions, this one I think fits the episode because, well, it's excretions and then there's maybe some secretions too. So so it was actually a fitting title for this episode, I think. I gave this episode a rating of the 9.54326. Horses love me. Shut up. It kind of, I like that line because it kind of reminds me of the time that that I tried to ride a horse one time, but I didn't actually get to even try to ride the horse because I tried to feed it a carrot, and instead it just kicked me in the face, and then my little sister, she's so mean to me sometimes. She just laughed and laughed at me. And then she turned on the merry-go-round and then sat on the horse and rode the merry-go-round without me. And I was so hurt by this. I don't know what to do with her sometimes. But anyway, so this one liked this episode. But there were times when I got confused on what he was watching. First, they had they had like a shaved fiery from you remember that movie with David Bowie and the Jennifer Connelly, she was like a shaved fiery. I don't know what was going on there. And then they had that whole thing with the naked time turned into like a less gory Event Horizon type of thing going on there. It was like, oh my goodness, this one got the vapors. But also a little disturbed with the orgy in 10 Forward. That was messy, if you know what I mean. Even my seat was sticky after this episode. I don't know what happened. This one would maybe take his best girl there, Mary Lou, after she lets me see that new shower curtain of hers. But I don't think we should drink anything there. Why was everybody in the mirror universe talking about horns? I didn't see any of those Dr. McGottos anywhere. Were they like in the closet somewhere or something? I don't know. That was kind of weird. Blimler there, he was pretty good at that Borg stuff, huh? Do you think maybe he learned that from Riker? He's kind of coming along pretty good there. I like that. And then so that plucked fiery. She was such a jerk. She reminds me of my boss, always being mean and pushing me down the stairs. This one almost expected to see her do that to somebody too. It gave me the anxiety, and I had to take a pill. I think I took the wrong one though, because my downstairs plumbing started to work and made me feel funny. And then They're still though. This one still feels like Tenderford are becoming the ancillary. They should really fix that. Maybe they should do some more like Tenderford centric episodes to fix that. By the way, I like that Tenderford way of saying that there, Lieutenant. I like that. That's a good one. And and by the way, Mary Lou, honey, you should really be resisting the black licorice. This one's cardiologist says it's bad for the heart. Remember, I said that last week. It's bad for the heart. So, because it does something with the magnesium, takes it away, and you shouldn't eat it. But the way you describe it, it does make it sound kind of nice there. But you really shouldn't do that. But anyway, that's about all I got for this one. Yeah, and this one, I like that one too. This one really kind of enjoyed the episode, but like I said, it was it was that whole thing with the event horizon, like scene type of thing going on. It was kind of messy and maybe a little sticky and stuff like that. But anyway, so that's about all I got for this one. And that's it for me. Dwight Berman is reporting and out. Love you guys. I'll talk to you maybe some other time. Mary Lou, kiss. Love you too. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you so much, Dwight. And I'm sorry to say, there's no Mary Lou this week. I have a feeling we're going to get 2 Mary Lou voicemails to play next week. But unfortunately, we're recording on our normally scheduled Tuesday. That's the other podcast. Friday night. And we didn't delay it this time. So we, so anyway, so it looks like you did rate it and I didn't get it written down, but 9.54326 or something like that.
Yeah, 6. I thought it was interesting. You refer to the sexy time as like the event horizon.
He was, and he was referring to himself as this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's what's her face Bang Bang was doing too, which I'm assuming that's part of that race or character.
Yeah, it is. Sherry Yun Yem. So, okay. Well, we don't have any more. So let's go into our own notes. Kyle or LT, do you have any other notes that you want to bring up?
I don't, sir.
Okay. What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, we've pretty much hit everything that I wanted to bring up.
Well, one thing I noticed is that I think you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but in the States, a 60 is a pass. Is that right? And a 50 or 59 is a fail?
I mean, it's changed a lot since my days, but I mean, 60 would still be like
it'd still be a D. Most of the time, 70 is a pass.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, what I noticed is that, like in Canada, when I was in school, and it may have changed, I don't know, but when I was in school, a 50 was a pass. So, and I noticed some scores that were in there that were in the 50s, and they were still marked as a fail. So I thought that was interesting, and it was not necessarily wrong. It was just like, oh, okay, I guess that's US kind of marking standards. But anyway, sometimes the Canadian tests are pretty hard. So, we talked about Boimler and how much he's been improving. And I think that this episode, especially, it really showed that, and even Captain Freeman said that he's one of our best officers. And Mariner's kind of like, really?
Yeah.
But he does have a negative, and that is that he's a perfectionist, and that can turn into a negative in some situations. Like if you just can't leave well enough alone, like there are times where it's, like in art, like in podcasting, for example, there are times when you could spend another 24 hours editing a podcast, making it perfect, or you can, make it good enough and get it out in 4. And it's a struggle that I run into pretty much every week. That's enough for, I think, everything that I was going to say, but fantastic episode, as we have said pretty much all the way through.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, spot the references section. Let's move on to that. Most of these were my own. I did get a couple of them from a couple of videos that were not specifically Easter eggs, but 2 videos that came out very early, and yet they were really well covered. They really covered the episode well. Jessie Gender, I don't know if you ever watch any of her videos, LT, but she came out with a review of the episode, and I left a comment on there as like, you must get the screeners, because she had her episode out about 30 minutes after the episode came out, and it was so detailed that I was impressed, and I had to tell her how impressed I was with it, because she pretty much hit the nail on the head for like everything, both Easter eggs and also just the main points of the episode. So anyway, and also another good video that I came across on What Culture. Those 2 channels did a good job of covering the episode. So I caught a couple of things they mentioned on there, but again, most of the stuff I covered here. The 4 ensigns working on a relay station is similar to what we see the USS Shenzhou fix in Discovery Season 1, Episode 1, The Vulcan Hello. That station doesn't look like Relay Station 47, though, because I looked it up on Memory Alpha. This one looked more like a satellite, almost like Skylab or something. But anyway, I couldn't pinpoint the exact type of relay station, but and I remembered I didn't have this in the notes, and I didn't write the actual episode details, but I know it's season 6 of Next Gen. Not a very good episode, but it's Aquael. Aquael was a character that kind of had a romantic relationship with Geordi, and she was stationed on a relay station. So magnetic boots have played a plot point in a couple of the movies. Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country, where Gorkon was assassinated with assailants that were getting around with magnetic boots. And Star Trek First Contact, the gang, Picard, Worf, and Lieutenant Hawk were all using magnetic boots on now, trying to release the was it the reflector dish or something?
Yeah.
We see again Winger Bingston Jr., who is actually played by Angel Cordero. Is that his name? Hold on.
I just always remember Winger Bingston Jr., which means there's a Winger Bingston Sr.
Yes, Eugene. Yeah, Winger Bingston Jr. is played by Eugene Cordero, the same person that plays Rutherford. So when he does his voice sounds quite a bit different. Good Morning Cerritos may have been a tribute to The Office, or so I've heard. And of course, Good Morning Vietnam.
That's correct, sir.
Yes. All right. So here's where we go into the depths of my research. The drill administrator, notice how they didn't call her a drill instructor, is a Pandronian. I went to a ridiculous amount of research on this character because I had to know more about this character. So I did the unthinkable. I watched an entire TAS episode today.
Okay.
Pandronian is from the planet Pandro in the Garo 7 star system. And this species was first seen in the TAS Season 2, Episode 2 episode called Bem. And her saying this one to reference herself goes back to that episode. I watched the entire episode, and the character in that was called Honorary Commander Ari Ben Bem. And in that episode, Bem was also very sneaky. So that seems to be a trait within that species to kind of be not completely honest or have some kind of ulterior motive, because there were some really weird things that character did. And you were saying earlier how you said that wasn't one of your favorite episodes. I can understand why, but also I thought that this episode probably made that episode that much better. So I really enjoyed this episode. I'm talking about the Bem episode. I hadn't watched one of those episodes in a while, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to go into detail about the plot of that episode, but it behaved in a way that was canon consistent to this
one. Okay.
This one. Yeah. So, and that was no pun intended, this one. Anyway, but in that episode, that character did things that were kind of like, what's the word? Misdirections. There were a lot of misdirection in that, and acting strangely, like supposed to observe what they did on the Enterprise, and the character spent 6 weeks in their quarters before they actually engaged something. So, that's a little odd, and then goes on from there. Anyway, that was very interesting. Then after that, so anyway, that's what I found out. It was internally consistent. So this is an incomplete list of all of the references of other episodes or movies that we saw in this particular episode. Now, Kyle, you caught a couple that I didn't catch. So that's why I know for sure this is not a complete list. Mm-hmm. From the board, starting with those, the first ones we see is one called Kobayashi Maru. Of course, mm-hmm. That was first mentioned in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And it was also seen in the Star Trek 2009, where Kirk actually goes through it, and we see that. Then the next one is called Time Trap. And, there's many different possible ones that it could be, but there is a TAS episode, Season 1, Episode 11, called The Time Trap. So I'm assuming that's probably the one it referenced. Tribble Troubles is the next one, and there are 4 episodes that it could be related to. It's probably one of the first 2. Season 2, Episode 15 of the original series, the classic The Trouble with Tribbles. TAS had an episode, Season 1, Episode 5, More Tribbles, More Trouble. Then, of course, Deep Space Nine had its classic, at the 30th anniversary of Star Trek. It had Season 5, Episode 6, Trials and Tribulations. And then just within the last couple of years, in the short treks, we had Season 2, Episode 2, The Trouble with Edward. And that crazy one. Mm-hmm. And of course, Edward wanted to eat the Tribbles. Now, the next one that's listed is Q to Q. Now, this could be any number of Q episodes. There's mentioned, of course, we see Cupid, because he's that one officer comes into the cargo bay and says, "Hey, have you seen Q?" And he's wearing like a Robin Hood kind of suit. So that was from Cupid. That's a season 4 episode. I didn't get the actual episode number. It could be Deja Q, which is the one that's from season 3, and that is one with Corbin Burnson in it. There's another one from season 6, True Q. There's a few from from Voyager that it could be as well. But that title Q to Q is not a direct transfer of episodes, so I'm not sure specifically which one that is. But the Borg encounter, obviously we see Borg babies. We first see a Borg baby in season 2, episode 16 of Next Gen, and our first encounter with the Borg. Q who, and of course that was Q introduced them to the Borg. One thing I noticed is while he was going through it, how much they were using the soundtrack music from the episodes of the Borg, and there were other ones where they used it, but I remember specifically the music from The Best of Both Worlds was used as, he was like running through the Borg corridors. That was cool. And of course we see, and of course that's from season 3, episode 26 of Next Gen. If you didn't know that, you're not a Star Trek fan. I have watched that episode 130 times. So anyway, the Borg Queen, of course, was first seen in Star Trek First Contact. We have seen her many times since, particularly in Voyager, and we are going to again in Picard season 2. But the blowing on the neck reference is pretty much what she did to Data in Star Trek First Contact. I didn't write down the title or the episode name, or sorry, not the episode name, the episode number, but I know it's season 5, Cause and Effect. So we got that. And that's, of course, a callback in the cold open, but it's listed on the list of episodes. Natural Selection, I didn't get the episode number. That's from season 2. That's a Pulaski episode. Evolution, that's a Wesley Crusher and Dr. Crusher comes back, season 3, episode 1. Survival of the Fittest. That was one that I didn't quite know what that was. The one that I thought it might be the one where The Rock is fighting 7 of 9.
Oh yeah.
Or it could be Arena, but anyway, I didn't exactly figure out which one that was referring to. Chain of Command, that's TNG season 6, episode 11 and 12. Hero Worship, I didn't get the number of the episode, but it's in season 4. Carbon-based units is, of course, a reference to Star Trek the Motion Picture, where Aliyah calls humans carbon-based units. And then, of course, the Naked Time is a dual reference because it's kind of a mishmash of season 1, episode 4, The Naked Time. And because that one had more people acting crazy, like saying sinner and all that stuff. And Sulu, being sword, fighting with a sword, but also TNG season 1, episode 2, The Naked Now. And that's the one where everybody's having the sexy time. So Mirror Universe, of course, we've seen so much, but this one mostly was port from season to episode 4, the original episode Mirror Mirror, and we see similar costumes on that. We see the portable torturing device that was seen in that episode. And Maglimo, the ship's counselor, was on a leash. And that is probably a callback to Garrick being on a leash in Deep Space Nine Mirror Universe. So I believe Worf had Garrick on a leash.
I thought it was her name's left
Kira?
me. Thought it was Kira.
Might be.
Yeah,
It
I don't
could
know.
be.
I think it would be sexier if Kira had him on a leash rather than Worf having him on a leash.
Yeah. Have to go back and get an official ruling on that. But medical ethics, that was also brought up. And of course, that was one that Tendi went through. There are 3 callbacks for that episode, which was in TNG Season 5, Episode 16, Ethics. The Klingon asking to be killed. Of course, Worf wasn't asking to be killed because he broke his back trying to reach for a peanut. that was funny. But the stacking of the hexagonal containers that fall on Shax in a similar way that they fell on Worf, also a security officer. And I noticed that when they were reviving the Klingon, that they had on those red scrubs like Crusher and the doctor in that episode, Dr. Toby Russell, used. So we see an Old West planet, and that was the one where Mariner got stomped on by a horse. That was Spectre of the Gun. That's in TOS Season 3, Episode 6. And the reason why I'm picking that one over, some of the other ones, like, for example, there was A Fistful of Datas, and there's a couple of Enterprise episodes that have a Western town that was moved, from by aliens to another planet.
Right.
I didn't pick those because in this planet, we had a red sky, and that was what we see in Spectre of the Gun, was a red sky. So the good of the many, I mentioned that already with Rutherford. That's, of course, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and he's wearing the same outfit. Although he's doing what Spock did, he's got the outfit on that Scotty was wearing with that big round thing in the middle and almost like a button in the middle. Some of the other things we see Klingon counter, Cupid, the Jemadar, those things were mentioned with the senior officers. We see, of course, the Star Trek III Search for Spock. We talked about that already. Crystalline entity we've seen in 2 Next Gen episodes, and supposedly there was only one crystalline entity, so now there are multiple, according to this show. But Season 1, Episode 13, Data Lore, that's when Lore is speaking to the crystalline entity, and then we see the scientist, and I can't remember her name, but she basically destroys the crystalline entity in Season 5, Episode 4, Silicon Avatar. The officer, the last thing I'm going to mention is that the officer that told the senior officers to move along, he says, follow the yellow line, move it along, Lower Decks. That is the same officer that said the same thing to Tendi in the first episode. So,
nice.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So that is it for our Spot the References section. Anyway, like I said, I did most of those myself. Let's move on to our shipwide announcements. Most of these, thankfully, were Wes Huntington. So I only contributed one of these. So thank you, Wes. for helping out. It's much appreciated. The Lower Decks soundtrack will be released on October 8th. So I don't know who is putting that out, but I imagine it'll be available on the various streaming channels and for purchase. Prodigy will premiere on Paramount Plus in Australia on October 29th, one day after the US. So that's, pretty much standard. What I don't know, I was going to try to look this up. I know that Paramount Plus was supposed to be premiering in September in Latin America, but I don't know if it did or not. So I'd be curious to know if anyone listens to us in Latin America and has started getting Lower Decks or not. James Cawley, who is the owner of the Star Trek tour that's in Ticonderoga, New York. Of course, they have an Enterprise bridge there, and he is, or at least the company there, is creating an Enterprise D bridge as part of the Star Trek set tour that they have going on. I saw a picture of it. Looks pretty cool. The IATSE strike that we've been hearing about, that was in last week's news. Some of its members in protest have canceled their streaming service subscriptions in the hopes it would hurt the streamers in their pocketbooks. I'm not surprised. They are still planning to vote to authorize a strike. So if you don't know what that means, the IATSE are people like cinematographers, the editors, the script supervisors, the key grips and the dolly grips and the production designers and things like that. The ones that are working on the actual production of the episodes versus the writers and the producers and the actors, directors. There's like above the line and below the line, and they're what effectively below the line. In other words, they implement what the creatives want, as opposed to the writers, directors, cast and producers that come up with what they want. Anyway, it's the ones that implement that are striking or maybe striking. Another interview with another Strange New Worlds person. This one, of course, is Captain Pike, Anson Mount. And this was done Star Trek Day. So this isn't, this is a few weeks old, but he reiterated some of the things we've heard about it being, of course, like I said last week, it being episodic with a character arc. So since we've now heard it about 6 different ways from Sunday, I think we can pretty much take to the bank that that's what it's going to be. Terry Matalas, co-showrunner of Picard for seasons 2 and 3, has been tweeting out several pictures on Twitter and little videos from the set, and we've seen some interesting things. Have you guys seen any of it?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, a few.
Yeah. So what we're seeing are little hints of like a new ship. We're seeing an LCARS display. We're seeing like things like a red alert, and sounds like there might be a new ship, or maybe an old ship, maybe a refitted ship. I don't know, but I know Mike Okuda is involved again, so it's not surprising to see his old designs kind of coming back, updated. So this next one I want to take a little bit of time to talk about. This is not direct Star Trek, but I'm sure that there are a lot of fans of it that listen to this podcast. I know I'm one of them. Babylon 5 is getting a reboot, or at least a reboot is in development right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the original creator and showrunner of Babylon 5, J. Michael Straczynski, who I used to talk to on CompuServe many years ago, directly, I'm talking about. he is the showrunner and creator again. So this is the same man, and he had so much to do with that original show. Like he wrote, like I think of 110 episodes, he wrote like 90 something. So
Yep.
yeah. So anyway, he is working on a pilot script. It hasn't gotten the go ahead yet. If it does get bought, it's the CW that's looking to buy it. I don't know if that's the best network to put it on, to be honest with you. I would have liked to have seen a like HBO Max or HBO to something that would have the kind of budget to put to it. But you know, if the CW puts the kind of budget into it, you know, or they're able to use some of the streaming money to put into that and show it on, you know, regular prime time, you know, whatever. I don't care. Just give it more budget than the original got. I would love to see this. I mean, this would be fantastic, and it would be a reboot. It would be much like Battlestar Galactica was,
Right.
you know, 20 years ago, when it was not a continuation, but a reimagination, you know. So it didn't go the way that Discovery went, where Discovery was kind of like a half reboot or something. This would be a full reboot. This would be, you know, don't like add to what's there. For one thing, 4 of the main cast members on that show are no longer with us. So
Right.
it would be difficult you couldn't recast them. But like Delenn, for example, Jakar, Garibaldi are, you know, all passed away. Zach is another one that's passed away. I didn't even include him. So
the Doctor.
Yes, the Doctor. Yeah. In fact, he died not too long after the show was
right
in 2004. Yeah. So anyway, I thought that this was fantastic news. What do you guys?
Well, I'm. Go ahead, Cal.
No, I was just like, I watched Babylon 5 in the first few seasons, but then it was like, then I like kind of fell off, and then it went on for so long, and it was kind of like, you know, oh, I'll catch up. But that was before we had DVRs and being able to like really like, oh, I can just watch this at any time and binge watching. So I mean, it's kind of like I kind of catch it here and there, but if it's a reboot that they're just, you know, like, and it's coming back on, I kind of agree with you. I'm like, it's kind of being on the CW. Like, I'm like, if they have the budget, like you know, if they can put the money behind it, because that's what's going to make it good, and being able to be able to pay your actors, but have like decent effects, you know, being able to reimagine it and be able to do the creative, you know, control, or like, you know, the deal. Otherwise it's going to be like, you know, remember the graphics back then, it was just like, it was just enough to be like, hey, okay, whatever. And
well, it was one of the first shows that was using, you know, computer graphics. So
graphics.
Yeah, it was one of the first that had full CGI.
Right. And it was groundbreaking at the time. But when you compare it to some of the shows that even from a few years later, you know, those first couple of seasons, it just looks bad. And when you look at it like in 1080p, it looks really bad. So, you know,
but it may look bad, but the writing is so good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was designed as a 5-year arc, and he stuck with a 5-year arc. And the part that I've always loved about it is that it paid off so many things in the end that it set up in the first season.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, this is what I was watching instead of DS9 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That I was and am a huge Babylon 5 fan. And I'm excited they're doing a reboot, but I'm a little trepidatious as well. You know, but since JMS is involved in it, I have a much better feeling. it's not somebody else, it's the man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And if anyone, like, I know that he had to make some compromises in that show, because of budget, because of like it was on a network that wasn't a network, that ended
Right.
up, folding before it really got off the ground, and they moved the 5th season to TNT. It would have been better if all 5 seasons would have been on TNT instead, and then it might have been a little more stable. But and then of course the first like leading actor left after a season, and I know apparently he had some pretty bad mental health issues. That
it's Michael O'Hare
yeah, and
that played Commander Jeffrey Sinclair.
right. And anyway, I was reading just today that he was difficult for him to come back to the show to do like a 2-part or 3-part, whatever it was, return. Like he had stopped acting, and he just going through a whole bunch of things. And so they had to replace the captain. They replaced the second, the second in command, between season 4 and 5. And there were a bunch of changes, some things but then again, they had some movies afterwards, and they did have another like show that came afterwards. I was kind of bummed that it only lasted 1 season, because I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, I thought Crusade was pretty good.
And they did the Legend of the Rangers movie, which I still absolutely love.
Yeah. So anyway, I look forward to this. Maybe this network will cover it if it ever gets to be a show. Not committing to that. Depends on how many other shows.
There's time. Yeah, there's time though.
Yeah, but if that show gets made and you want to cover it, and we have too many shows to cover, come and talk to me. So anyway, speaking of shows that are supposedly coming back, William Shatner, the hardest working man in show business, when he's not going up in orbit, he is apparently bringing back Tech War. Tech War, if you don't know what it was a series of novels that I think he co-wrote with a ghostwriter. I don't know who the ghostwriter was, but anyway, he came up with this show called Tech War based on the books. I think it was starring Greg Evigan, and it was sort of a 21st century cop, or private detective kind of thing. I don't remember much about it, but it was on similar, probably even, I think it might have also been on the Primetime Entertainment Network, just like Babylon 5 was.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's working on a reboot of that, and supposedly that would be an animated show. It's not tied to a network at this point. It's just in development, but I was kind of surprised to hear that. So
yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Last bit of news, Emma Watts, who was the head of the Paramount Motion Pictures Group, who made it her mission to bring back Star Trek to the big screen, has resigned. And this is a thing that happens in Hollywood. They have the head guy resigns, and then all his people resign. And then, the person that replaces them with all other people. It's just
yep.
It's been,
and then they move on to something else.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Anyway, it's almost like a political, thing. One office comes in and replaces all the people. Similar kind of thing. But so Emma Watts, after I guess the head of Paramount Pictures resigned, she resigned, and it's unclear what effects this will make to the films that are in production. But I did hear the person, the new president or whatever, said that they're still working on those things. So I don't think it means anything. It sounds like it's full steam ahead to me.
Good.
So
Way cool.
all right. So that's it for our news. So let's move on to the last part where we tell people how to contact us.
All right. To submit your feedback and theories, go to talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, where you can submit text or audio. You can also call us at 216-232-6146. Leave a voicemail. We definitely love those. And you can email us at lowerdecks@talkthroughmedia.com. You can also post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group, and you can find that at facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts. The deadline for Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 8 will be on a regular day and time, Friday, October 8, 2021 at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central.
You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Star Trek TTM. A great way you can support us is to share us on Twitter and Facebook. That's facebook.com/talkthroughmedia. You can write us a review there. In that group is where you can share the episode when the new episode comes out and send it to all your friends on Facebook and on Twitter. You can subscribe to the Talk Through Media YouTube channel. That's where you'll find new episodes before anyone else does. You can subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts or the podcast client of your choice. While you're there, please give us a rating or a review. You can also go to podchaser.com. There you can give us a rating on individual episodes or the entire podcast. One of the biggest ways you can help support us is through our Patreon. We would like to thank our Patreon supporters: James Robbins, Kim Vogley, Brian Shiro, Christoph Leckleitner, Michael Carrier, Stephen Chambers, Jeff Gentry, Robert Kaiser, Clint McCollum, Mike, Trey Whipke, this guy, the Quail.
Yay. The Quail. I'll take it.
Quail. All of our episodes from Talk Through Media can be found on the Talk Through Media all-inclusive feed, which, plus these new Star Trek podcasts, Rebinge DS9 is included on there, as is the other podcasts that we do, The Walking Dead Talk Through, the three of us do. Speaking of that, we recently released the episode 4, season 11, episode 6 of The Walking Dead, and the next one we're going to be covering is covering two episodes of The Walking Dead universe, season 11, episode 7, and season 2, episode 1 of The Walking Dead World Beyond. And
woo. Yay.
And yeah, so hasn't been my favorite of the universe, but hopefully maybe it'll be better this time around.
Yep.
I just
agree.
wish they wouldn't overlap it like they do.
Yeah, agreed on that. But
So
it is what it is.
we have only 2 episodes left of Lower Decks for this season. So the next episode will be covering season 2, episode 9, the penultimate episode of season 2. We don't know the title of it yet, who's written it, or who's directed it, or a description. But until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kyle.
And I'm LT.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.
Jolan True.